those harmonies out there. Use it. Thank you, Becca. Thank you for coming 2 weeks to help us learn that song. It's wonderful to see you all here. Even you, Jim. Genesis. Yeah, great. Yeah. Genesis is a community dedicated to love, dedicated to inspiring harmony and creating connection to empower spiritual growth. And we love that you are here to share in that with us. My name is Cynthia Zinc, and I will be your host this morning, along with some other things, which we'll get to. Our online host today is, I forgot to find all the volunteers. Cal is our online host, great. So if this is your first time watching online, welcome. Please comment on how you found Genesis, and we are so happy that you're here with us. So now we're going to read our mission and vision statements. If you would read along with me from the slide, the screen I was going to say, our wall. Our mission, we are building a vibrant community, cultivating a garden of spiritual growth, honoring vulnerability, creating a safe place of comfort and peace, where all are welcome and accepted. And our vision, Genesis is a bright beacon with an unshakable heart of love, accepting all. A home for the soul where we each creatively express our spiritual brilliance. And our announcements for today. Mark your calendars. Reverend James will be offering a prosperity class in October on the 27th after service from noon to 1:30. All are welcome to attend. More details to come on what to expect in that class. Join us for our community meeting on November 10th. If you remember, we used to do these periodically, maybe once a month at one point. We are starting them up again, probably once a quarter. We'll share updates on current projects and plans, but more importantly, we want to hear from you. What direction do you feel Genesis should go? This is an opportunity for open dialogue between the board and the community. So please come ready to share your thoughts on any topic related to Genesis. That was pretty broad. It's not just any topic. Let's stay connected. My election intention, this one I kind of written all over. 100 days of mindful practice during election season from July 28th to November 4th. We are cultivating a special mindfulness practice to raise the vibration for the 2024 U.S. presidential election. Receive daily messages from New Thought leaders, participate in weekly Zoom community check-ins, and more. You can text JOIN to 470-784-0250 or go to myelectionintention.com. And actually on their website, you can go back and hear the old ones. Is anybody here listening to these? A couple? Good. It's great. Genesis is working alongside CSL Tacoma and CSL Ballard to offer more available classes to our communities. For more information, you can go to our website, to their websites. Yes, right now, all the classes have started, so you have to wait until January for the new classes. However, I do have one class that I want to tell you about. Our speaker this morning, as you know, is Reverend Michael Bogar. And he is teaching a class that's kind of an expansion on today's talk. Is that fair to say? Called Soul and Soulmaking at CSL. And I have some of these flyers on the back table, on the welcome table. If you would like to learn more about it, you can read about it online on the flyer. You can sign up for it online. It's all on Zoom, correct?
Yep. And it looks, the title is Earnest Homes and Soulmaking. So
Oh, that's right.
it looks at Earnest Homes and this perspective.
Yeah, great, thanks. I figured it was better me giving you a plug than you shamelessly having to promote your class. Yeah, thanks. We'll talk about the amount. On Sunday, January 26th, we are headed to Sound Foundations for a special sacred service as we come together to build a tiny home. We'll meet to work, connect, and serve our community in a hands-on way. Please remember to wear warm clothes. Let's make a meaningful impact. There is a sign up for this. We need 10 people, so I don't know if we can get 10 members from Genesis, bring family and friends to it, so we have the 10 people, so it is our group. That would be great. Today, our book study will be after service from 12 to 1. All are welcome. We will be starting. Thought I better make sure the right book was up there. Chapter 1, From Going Home, Jesus and Buddha as Brothers by Thich Nhat Hanh. Have you read that? Too bad. It's a good book. Okay, do we have any first-time guests here visiting? Okay, any first-time guests online? Perfect. Not yet. So now is the time that everybody gets to get up and meet people and meet and greet. If you are not a hugger, most of the people here are huggers. If you are not, just put your hand out and say good morning. And I will probably ring the gong when it's time to come back together. Okay. I'm sorry, I just read in the directions that I'm supposed to be using a brush for the gong. Who brought the brush? That's That's a mallet. Anyway, okay. So volunteers for today. Well, Genesis is very excited about all of the people who volunteer to be in service. And I'm going to hopefully remember everybody because I didn't write it down because, of course, I was busy talking before church. So helping set up this morning were Jim Monson, Eric, Mike, Johns, Cal, Rose helped us set up this morning. I helped. I think that's it. Gideon. Sorry, Gideon. Gideon is so always here. Sometimes I forget him. But how can we forget Gideon? We can't. Okay, so on soundboard this morning is Jim Monson. Eric and Mike are working with the video, the slides, and is that all you guys do? Seems like you do so much more.
Hey, it's the nerd table back here. We do a lot. We don't discuss it. It's that big cloud.
Okay. Oversee everything. Okay. So Reverend Rose is our practitioner in vigil this morning, and the vigil practitioner sits and holds a space, a vessel of love for us as we sit in the service and listen and join in and sing and do whatever we do during the service. So thank you, Reverend Rose. And as you know, I am your host today. I am also the practitioner on duty, so I will be over here after service. If anyone is in need of prayer, I am happy to pray with you. And I think that's it. Friday night dinner club. Is that the right name? Is that your name? Okay. Supper club. Friday night supper club is in charge of our treats today after service. So they are always bringing good things for us. So now if you would all join me in our centering song, Breathe and Turn Within, that would be great.
I breathe and turn within. I breathe and turn within. I open up my heart and feel God's presence. I breathe and turn within. I
So now is the time we get centered for our service. I will start with ringing the gong 3 times. I'll have an inspirational reading and then end with a prayer. This gong is in a different place every time. My reading this morning is from day 72 of our election intention, and its focus is on healing. The one consciousness that is governing all things is coursing through my entire body. There is a cleanliness, a newness, a freshness, an eternal nowness to that energy, a constant motion. If we could examine our bodies on a microscopic level, we would see everything is in motion. Even when blood is taken out of our body and put under a microscope, it is still moving. It's still connected to us. So everything is in motion. When there is a sickness, a cold, we are feeling fearful, a disturbance in peace that can be a temporary situation. But we get stuck and we stay there and we loop and we cause disease, discomfort, fear, anxiety, and depression. What happens is we get hooked. So I claim to be in flow state, movement and action. Healing is about reactivating and realigning. So if I jump out of stuck mode and jump into flow mode, I am in healing. My body knows how to course correct. My emotions know how to regulate. My thought patterns can be managed. Letting go of the stuck energy and moving into flow state is healing. And I'm going to end this reading with an affirmative prayer. So I know that divinity is a healing resource. It is flow state, everything in alignment. I know that I am inseparable from that very alignment that is always in an evolutionary now state. I choose to move into my flow state because that's my most natural state. I release this into the consciousness with a deep, deep gratitude. And so it is. Amen. And now, please help me welcome Becca Palm. The dull tones of Becca Palm.
I hear having a taste in this moment of eternity, being the mirror as well as the face. In this moment of eternity, we breathe in, we breathe out. It's all here, it's all now. We take in, we give out. It's right here, it's right now. We're the sweet cold water and the jar that pours in this moment of eternity, and in the sky and a bird that soars in this moment of eternity. We breathe in, we breathe out. It's right here, it's right now. We give in, we take out. It's all here, it's all now. Our broken remains are whole and alone, all of it here in this moment of eternity. We breathe in, we breathe out. It's right here, it's right now. We give in, we take out. It's all here, it's all now. Will you be my choir? In this moment of eternity, in this moment of eternity, in this moment of eternity, in this moment of eternity. Keep it going. We breathe in, we breathe out. It's all here, it's all out. In this moment of eternity, in this moment of eternity.
Thank you, Becca. That was beautiful. So our speaker this morning is Michael Bogar, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with him. Did you ever speak at Genesis on a Sunday morning? Did you? I must have been sick. I've taken several classes with him, but don't remember him speaking at Genesis. So I thought because maybe some of you are not familiar with him, I would give you a little bit of a background. Michael is currently an adjunct professor of religious studies and world religions at Central Texas College at a campus located on Joint Base Lewis McChord in Tacoma, Washington. Michael's approach is from a full life experience, and he can relate to a wide range of people. He has a way of communicating to those at the top of their game and those ready to quit. Life is educational in a soul-making world. Each morning presents an opportunity to begin anew. He has a proven ability to inform and inspire students, ranging from the informal beginner to the serious scholar. Students and audience members frequently comment on his depth of scholarship, personal approach, and his sense of humor. Michael has studied theology, Jungian depth psychology, and universal mythologies. He has taught classical texts from many religious traditions and is a very effective teacher of psychological and spiritual ideas and practices. So if you would please join me in welcoming Reverend Michael Bogar.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Yeah, I spoke over at that other place a long time ago. All right, let's get down to it. Soulmaking. How many of you have heard that phrase before, just out of curiosity? Anybody, I'm an interactive kind of guy, so anybody like to tell me what you think it means? What is soulmaking? Speak out loudly.
Basically, to me, it's the experiences I have in this corporeal form my soul has decided to take on, both good and bad, actually do, as your diagram shows, kind of carve and sculpt my soul.
Okay, would you like to come up and give the talk? All right. No, that's excellent. That is so good. Anyone else? What is soul making? Think of the two words, soul making. Anybody else want to take a shot at it?
Spiritual character.
What about spiritual character?
Kind of our experiences in life make us who we are.
Okay, very good. It's becoming someone through this life. Okay, good. Anyone else? Soul making. The technical term is psychopoiesis. Psyche, soul, poiesis means to make or create. The Greek word poeo means to make. So psychopoiesis is the idea that each of us is a poem in the making. We're a work of art. And sometimes that work of art has mistakes in it, and then those mistakes can be corrected, or they're just sort of absorbed into the bigger picture. So it's all of life. It's actually summarized here, I notice. This is almost 100 years old. I don't know how many of you have read this through recently, but Ernest Holmes, back in 1927, published this in the Science Mind magazine, and he wrote here on this statement, we, that include all of us because we are part of the group, we, actually, I like the New Thought movement because we don't have to be part of the group, but whatever. We believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the, what? Individual soul forever and ever expanding. So the idea here is, and the class that I'm going to be doing on Ernest Holmes and soulmaking is going to look at this idea from the Science of Mind textbook. The idea here is that each of us, well, let me go with some of the slides. What is soulmaking? Go ahead and... Is it not working? All right, so here's an image of soulmaking. Does that look comfortable? No. Sometimes it is not comfortable. Keep going. Can I use the clicker? Oh.
It's the computer that's making things delayed, not the clicker.
Okay. Anyway, what is soulmaking? If I do that, that's the click. And how does soulmaking work? That's what we're going to look at this morning. So what is soulmaking? Let's start there, please. Keep going. Put simply, a soul-making approach to life suggests that we come into this world not only as biological infants, we all know that, right? The sperm and the egg come together and create this amazing being that each of us is sitting here this morning from those two little tiny particles. A soul-making perspective says we are not only biological infants, but we also come into this world as psychological embryos. In other words, the soul is not made complete with the body, and this is kind of the view that we kind of absorb in the culture, that a soul is this animating, immortal principle that lives in us. Maybe it is. But a soul-making perspective says, what if, or asks, what if the soul is also an embryo, and that it comes with us into this world with our body, and there is a makeup, of course, of each of those, but that makeup is minuscule, and it must expand and grow biologically and psychospiritually. So soul comes as an embryo. Next. Each person is an unformed soul seed planted on planet Earth. So each of us comes into this world as a baby soul. Next. The growth of each individual soul occurs over a lifetime, or if you're involved in the New Thought movement, many lifetimes. So take your pick. So it is something that happens. Next slide, please. Earth is a school, and earth is the kind of soil for the soul seed to be planted into. Your family, that is your caretakers, your parents. I talked to this young woman here today who just met her biological parents. So you had a different family, I assume, before that. That is part of the soul-making matrix for each of us. The family, the neighborhood, the school, the gender, the hair color we have, the faces that we get, everything about us, our sexual orientation, our political proclivities, the likes, dislikes, all that stuff that we just assume we sort of absorb. Well, we all come in to this world with a kind of individuality about us that has these propensities, because these are the propensities that move us into the soul-making experience. So we bring these into the world, and we are planted in the soil, and this image just went wonkers on me here, and that's part of soul-making, by the way. We are planted in this world like a school, and in this school, every single moment is a soul-making moment. Now, this is true not only externally, the events that occur around us, but as, or maybe even more importantly, the events that occur within us. every emotion, every thought. When you put your head on the pillow at night and move into those anxiety moments, you understand what I'm talking about? You're lying there, it's quiet, it's dark, and you're thinking, what the hell am I going to do about this? That is a soul-making moment, according to this perspective. So there is no moment that is wasted in a soul-making school. Every experience is moving the soul toward its maturity. As Holmes said, how is it expanding? Ever expanding. So every moment the soul-making takes place. Next slide. Some sources very quickly. 1948, the French philosopher Albert Camus said, if there is a soul, he's even questioning whether or not there is, and he was that kind of guy, if there is a soul, it is a mistake to believe that it is given to us fully created. It is created where? Here. How? Throughout a whole life. And living is nothing else but that long and painful bringing forth. Now, the New Thought movement often would say, we're not affirming pain, but Camus is not affirming pain, he's just recognizing that it is part of this life. And what he's saying is, this is part of the soul-making life. Next. Another source, 150 AD. By the way, this was the original Christian theological position on existence. It was a soul-making position. In the 4th century, Augustine came along and inserted the idea of original sin, and that was a little different perspective. But the early Christians, Irenaeus was one, said, when the spirit of each person is united by God to a fleshly human body, so when the spirit and body come together, the human soul is made complete by living in that body in this material world. Now contemplate that for a moment. What it means is each of us comes as a kind of spark of spiritual intelligence, but we're just a little spark, and that little spark is placed into a physical body in a physical world, and then when that little physical body with that spark of intelligence comes into this world and starts running into people, places, things, then a soul begins to expand through the experience. So what's the purpose of this world? To make a soul. Next slide. 200 AD, the Christian theologian Origen said this, being made in God's image is the beginning of the soul. The what? Beginning of the soul. Living in this material world is what changes us into that completed image of God. So these ideas are all found in many different places. One more, very quickly. John Keats, the poet. Have you heard of John Keats? Some of you have heard of John Keats, the romantic poet. Anybody know how old he was when he died? 25 years old. He had just started to become famous. He was dying of tuberculosis. My mother had tuberculosis when I was a young kid. She survived it, but it used to be a killer. Consumption. Dying of tuberculosis at the age of 25, abandoned by his fiancée because he had gotten sick, financially broke, just achieving recognition as a brilliant poet, Keats struggled to make sense of this thing called life. We all have had some of these kinds of experiences where things fall apart. But at the age of 25, he knew he was dying. In fact, he would die within a year. So he's in the midst of this. He had just nursed his mother and his brother through tuberculosis and watched them both die. So this is a hell of an experience for a 25-year-old. Now, here's what he wrote in 1819 in the midst of this hell that he was living in. In a letter in 1819, Keats writes, "Call the world if you please," and he's writing to his brother, kind of trying to figure out what's going on with all of this trauma. "Call the world if you please the valley of soul-making. Then you will find out the use of this world." I say soul-making, Keats writes, soul as distinguished from an intelligence. Now in the class we're going to spend more time talking about what I think he's saying here, but intelligence is that little, well, he says, next, there may be intelligences or sparks of the divinity in millions, but they acquire identities. till each one is personally itself. Now, keep in mind his life situation. He's not writing this as an academic writing a dissertation at a university. He is sitting in the midst of this trauma, and he's writing, trying to make sense of his own experiences, going, what if I am in the midst of this stuff, because this is what is required to make a soul. I'm not asking you to agree. I'm just suggesting this is a perspective. He says, do you not see, to his brother, how necessary, and this is a very important word, it's not optional. Do you not see how necessary a world of pains and troubles is to school an intelligence and make it a soul? Now, this tries to answer the question, the age-old question, and I'm not saying it does it right or rightly, but the question is, why do we suffer? My experience was, as a 19-year-old, I had an experience with Jesus Christ and became a Christian and went to a Christian school, and it was an amazing experience. And over the next couple of decades, I found myself in that milieu of Christianity, and I heard a constant message. Much of it was very, very uplifting, but I began to hear a constant message: you're a sinner. You're a failure. You're an original sinner. This is wrong. This is wrong. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do this. Don't do that. And I began to feel really, really pressed down, literally depressed by this constant barrage of life is pain and suffering, and this is what you deserve because you're a sinner. I eventually, at the age of 37, found the New Thought movement and actually met with Jim Munson. Some of you may remember Jim Munson at the Seattle church years ago. And he showed me this statement, and we talked the whole day. And he said, will you come over and teach a class at our church? And I said, you don't understand. I hate religion. I'm leaving it. I'm done with it. I'm done with the Bible. I'm done with religion. I do believe in God and Christ as a personal experience, but I'm out. He said, I think you'll find it different here. So I came over, taught the class, and I have been with the New Thought movement ever since. And what I heard in the New Thought movement was almost the polar opposite of what I heard in the evangelical Christian movement. You are good. Life is good. We affirm that you are a whole and healthy and healed human being, and blah, blah, blah. And that was so refreshing to hear until it didn't reconcile with those parts of me that were all effed up. And I began to see that in the New Thought movement, I was surrounded by people who were just as effed up as the people in the evangelical movement. And I began to question and go, no, wait a minute. I thought this was utopia. This is all about health and healing and wholeness. Good. This is about you are effed up and you need help. Also good. Uh-oh. I got to a point in my life where I asked myself the question, where am I going to find the truth? It doesn't seem to be in either of these groups completely. And then this revelation came, and it drew a big circle around me and said, Michael, wholeness is not just being healthy. Wholeness is encompassing every experience you have on this earth as part of spirituality. Your time with the evangelicals was a soul-making time, and it was necessary for you to have that experience to become the soul that you're becoming. Your movement over to the New Thought movement was just as important because this experience has added a little water and a little sun to your soul, and it's expanding. But it's not big enough either, because you know what? You will never find a single institution or belief system on this earth that is big enough. We're always changing. The people that are not here this morning, and this is most of the planet, are not here because they're making soul elsewhere, wherever they are, even those who don't know it. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I went through about 10 years of hell with alcoholism, and that was a soul-making experience, maybe one of the biggest soul-making experiences in my life. Because, as we're going to see here in a moment, when you look at how soul-making works, a big part of it is you have to be put together and then taken apart. And then put back together and taken apart. And put back together and taken apart. Sometimes you can do that in a single telephone call. You know what I'm saying? And we all know this morning, if you're a human being sitting here in this room, that there are moments that you come to this church and you hear the wholeness and the healing and the health and all of that, and it's good, and it maybe even lifts you up, but then you get home and you go, what the hell am I doing in this life? Why is this happening to me? Why did the doctor call and give this report about these tests I just had? This is not good. Why is this happening to my loved one? Why is this happening in Palestine or in Israel or wherever it happens to be on the planet? We look at that stuff and we go, I don't understand how it's all good and healthy and whole, when in fact there's a lot of stuff just falling apart around us. A soul-making perspective says, yes, both are true and both are necessary to make a soul. All right, let's move to the next very quickly. Forget that. Next one. Now, the question is, how is a unique soul made? We kind of saw what it is. How does it happen? To me, the best metaphor comes from a butterfly. Now, a lot of people don't know, all of us have heard of psychology and psyche, but the Greek word for butterfly is psyche. Did you know that? Psyche. So psyche logos, psychology, technically is the science of butterflies. You don't know that because today we hear psychology, it's the science of mind. It's all about your mind. Well, for the Greeks, it wasn't all about the mind. The mind was only one part of psyche. Psyche was a butterfly. And the soul for the Greeks was a butterfly. And each of us, in a sense, then, is a butterfly because the butterfly best symbolizes what it is to make a soul. And what makes a butterfly unique? What's the characteristics of the uniqueness of a butterfly? How does it start out? It starts out as a little egg, and that little egg hatches, and out comes a caterpillar. And the caterpillar's living a sweet little caterpillar life in caterpillar relational world with other caterpillars. And then eventually one day it is compelled to climb onto a leaf and become a chrysalis. And it weaves a suffocating shroud around itself. And I can't imagine if that caterpillar has consciousness that's going, oh, this is fun. Now it's going, I'm suffocating. I'm liquefying. I'm dissolving. I'm melting. That's the third stage. And then out of that experience of the chrysalis comes the butterfly. That's psyche. And the Greeks knew that. The Greeks knew that when they watched the butterfly or the night moth going through those stages or those modes of experience, that's the way the human soul goes through experience. Exactly like a psyche/butterfly. So let's very quickly look at these four modes of consciousness. The first mode of consciousness, no, go back to just number one. The first mode of consciousness for the butterfly, and I'm going to suggest in a soul-making world for each of us, is to come into this world as the egg or the ego. Ego. Now, I'm not trying to be clever here. It just happens to work out this way. But this is the beginning. In the beginning of life, we each come into this world as a little infant, born into some sort of family, and we begin to acquire an identity. Yes? We're given a name. We're told certain things by the family, by the neighborhood, by the school, by the culture, by the nation. And this is true of people all around the world. We acquire an identity. We learn who we are, what we like, what we don't like. This is necessary in soul-making. In a soul-making world, the ego is not our enemy. It can be. It will become our enemy, but initially it is our biggest ally. The Bhagavad Gita says, your greatest enemy and your greatest ally is your ego. Because your ego in a soul-making world must allow you to start with an identity. This is who I am. And by God, I'm right. I am the center of the universe. Now, children don't say that, but they act that way, typically. And this stays with us our whole lives, but that's the beginning of the soul-making experience. You have to start with a self. Me-centered, I am right. From the egg emerges the caterpillar. Anybody know what a processional caterpillar is? In Africa, they have these caterpillar colonies they call processionals, and they are caterpillars that will find the lead caterpillar, and then they will back up one to the other and make a train, sometimes a mile long, and they will follow that lead caterpillar no matter where it goes. If it goes into a swamp and into the water, every other caterpillar follows that caterpillar into the water, and they all drown. This is stage 2, because after we develop an ego, like the butterfly, we begin to develop relationships. Now, what do you think of when you think of relationships? What kinds of relationships? Friendships. We develop friends when we're kids. What else? Say parent, child. What else? Expand your thinking on relationships from just people. Romantic relationships we develop, we fall in love, we get married, we have kids, we get divorced, we get miserable.
We have relationships with our environment.
What? We have a relationship with our environment. Name some objects we have relationships with. Books. Music. Cars. Teachers. Food. Huh? Other countries. Everything. Stop thinking of relationships as just people. It's everything. You have a relationship with your refrigerator. You have a relationship with your television. You have a relationship with your computer. We have a relationship. This is for soul making. This is a caterpillar stage. And in order to make a soul, after you develop a self-image, you have to develop an other image. And that other image is what we start to connect ourselves to in relationship. I call it the we-go. It is partisan politics. It is religious proclivities. People in the New Thought movement have a relationship with the New Thought movement. And the other movements are not quite as good. We love them all, of course. Unless we are in private, and then we can tell you which ones are assholes. Or maybe we don't. The point is, a soul-making world requires us to have relationships. Many of them. It's the way it works. It's the school. So as a child grows up, develops relationships, that is necessary. Because you have to have a self and a we-go or partisan or relationships with things before you can go to the next stage. You understand? That's required. Next stage, please. The chrysalis. The ego, at some point, creates chaos because it's so self-centered. Relationships also create chaos. Why? How? They become difficult. We disagree with each other. Our team disagrees with their team. Go to a sporting event. You see that dynamic. Look at the politics of any time. You see that dynamic. People become crazy enough to run into people's yards and rip off campaign signs. So this is stage 3, disintegration. See? Perfect timing. Because disintegration pisses us off when it happens. It just does. Things start to fall apart. The relationship with the refrigerator falls apart. What's that look like? I keep coming back to, stinky food, but I keep coming back looking for something that wasn't there 10 minutes ago. Or I pull out that cheesecake and I have a slice that big instead of a slice that big. So I have a disintegrated relationship with food, with refrigerator, with the television, with Amazon.com. Any number of things. Now, this is where I think the New Thought movement sometimes misses out because we don't spend enough time talking about the spirituality of disintegration. And in this perspective of soul making, and even Ernest Holmes, as we'll see in the Science of Mind textbook, disintegration is a necessary part of the evolution of the expansion of the soul. And we need some remedial chrysalis teaching in some of our churches because we don't know how to fall apart. falling apart is a big part of the Ernest Holmes class we're going to talk about, because falling apart is learning how to not get stuck in the disintegration, get stuck in the chrysalis. The chrysalis is a developmental experience, and all suffering is potentially developmental if we learn to move. What preposition should be put there? Move through it, not around it, not over it, under it, through it. And this is where Carl Jung's work is so incredibly helpful. To move through the chrysalis, to move through the liquefaction of the self or the we-go, the partisan self, and to fall apart prepares us for the fourth stage, which is what? Reintegration. We got a demon in the projector. Reintegration. This is where we are put back together after the disintegration. And out comes the eternal, immortal, expanding soul. This is how it works in a nutshell, and we could spend a lot more time looking at that and will in the class. Next slide. Last slide. We must enter the chrysalis. I'm focusing on the chrysalis here. We must enter the chrysalis to become a mature soul. Here's what Ernest Holmes says in his Science of Mind text. He said, we should have no intellectual difficulty in realizing that an infinite intelligence could not make an automatic individuality. In other words, you can't become an individual by God making you an individual. You understand? You can't just, yeah, now you're healed. Holmes says, no, you can't do that. This explains why humans suffer on their road to self-discovery. Now, I wish he had a whole chapter on this. He touches on it, but he doesn't dwell on it because he was involved in a Congregationalist church at the time where they helped you fall apart. I'm being serious here. Most of the early New Thought people were in Christian churches getting a part of the message. The New Thought movement did not come along to replace that message. It came along to supplement it with a balanced message. Now, this is where I get in trouble in the New Thought movement and sometimes think they might run me out. Because what I'm trying to say here is there is a time and a place for evangelicals and Catholics and the Baptists and every other group, the Muslims, every other group that focus a little more on the disintegration. And then there's a time for, where'd that go? Our suffering is not God ordained because each creates his or her own experiences as he becomes individualized, last line. But suffering may be salutary or beneficial in that it leads us to a place where we learn that it is unnecessary. Now, unnecessary does not mean that it's not necessary when it's happening, because it's what? It's salutary. The New Thought movement needs to spend a little more time, in my opinion, on talking about the salutary or beneficial experiences of suffering. The danger, and I think the reason so many do not, is because the danger is you can get stuck in victimhood. And in that victimhood, you explain away all this, no, I'm just suffering. They're all just doing it to me. Everybody's screwing me over. Oh. Even that's fine until it's not. That's the way it works. If we had a second talk coming up in a week, I would come and share with you my experience of recovery and from alcoholism and the way I used alcohol to postpone the salutary experiences by staying drunk. Drugs and alcohol are a wonderful way to avoid the chrysalis or prolong the chrysalis. All right. And to summarize that, I have this little image here of so many good-natured people coming to someone in the chrysalis and ripping them out and saying, I'll save you from your suffering. When in fact, that experience may be the very thing they need to move through in order to get to the soul that is being made. And for those of us that are parents or partners in a marriage, we need to recognize that fine line. And, you know, the prayer in AA, the wisdom to know the difference. When to step in and pull them out of the chrysalis, and when to stand the hell back and say, I can't do anything for you. You're going to have to go through this. It's difficult sometimes. All right, let's close. If you would with me, take a breath. We've kind of left-brained here and intellectualized this whole experience of soul making. So let's move into the right brain, that part of the brain that imagines, that feels, that sees, that intuits. Put the words aside, open the heart, and just take a moment and ask this simple question to your heart. Am I aware of the full experience of soul expansion through everything that happens in my life? Doesn't mean I sit back and just watch it. If I can fix it, for God's sake, fix it. If I can heal it, for God's sake, heal it. But if it persists, am I able to see the salutary effects of this trauma? My mantra and summary of the soul-making life is, I am the poet, I am the poem. I am the poet because I make affirmations and pray affirmative prayers and change and create my life for the good. I am the poet. I make my life good. And I am also the poem. A power greater than me is working through every thought, every emotion, every relationship, every experience to write me as this magnificent soul poem. I am the poet. I am the poem. And so it is.
There is a poet down in my soul. There's a poem down in my soul. A poet and a poem deep down in my soul. The soul-making world is my home. An egg and a caterpillar down in my soul. Then a chrysalis down in my soul. Then comes a butterfly down in my soul. This soul-making world is my home. There's pain and suffering down in my soul. Weird, funky traumas down in your soul. Disintegration in our soul. The soul-making world is my home. Every moment is growing my soul. Every emotion creating my soul. Every thought expanding my soul. And the soul-making world is my home. The soul-making world
Thank you, Michael, for those words of inspiration. Thank you, Becca, for the exclamation point on the words of this talk. And now is the time for you to grab the prayer cards, the offering envelopes. On the prayer cards, if you would write your name, please, where it says name. And then anything that you would like prayer for, whether it's someone that you're concerned about, whether it is something that you're grateful for, whether it's just that wonderful place of thanksgiving and joy that we can be in all of the time once we've become the butterfly. And then on the back side, if you haven't noticed, there is a place for listing your demonstrations that you have had in the past, for something that you've prayed for, that the practitioners have prayed for you, or someone else has prayed for, but you have had a demonstration showing that your prayer has manifested. And we would like to do that. And then these cards are passed out to the practitioners that are here this morning, and those prayers go out during the week to the Spirit, to the divine. And you're always in our thoughts and prayers. So I'll give you a minute or two to do that. Online, you can submit your prayer requests through the Genesis website at genesiscsl.org, and we'll collect these cards at the end of the service. You can actually put them in the offering basket and pass them along, like I said, to the practitioner team that is here this morning. And then while you're doing that, if you are so inclined, there is an offering envelope. And if you would like to share your wealth with Genesis, we rely on this for continuing the services here, for doing the ministry that Genesis does in the community, and with all of those that worship with us on Sundays and those around us, our family members, our friends, our relatives, whoever else. And your offering is very important for that. You can also visit our website at genesiscsl.org, or you can text your tithe to 206-800-7595. I'll give you another moment to craft your financial gift. So if you would take your cards and your envelopes and hold them to your heart and pray with me our offering prayer. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, and I am thankful. And Gideon will now take the basket around, and you may place your prayer card, your offering envelope with your offering or without your offering into the basket. And we will sing God is my source as he is doing that.
God is my source, God is my power, God gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings. God gives me everything I need. God is my source, God is my power, God gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings. God gives me everything I need. God gives me everything I need.
hearts we receive these gifts, knowing the fruits that come forth do powerful works. And we bless the givers, knowing that as we give, we receive tenfold. It is in deep gratitude that we give thanks. And so it is. Thank you all for joining us today. Please join us after the service for food and fellowship. I will be in the alcove over here for prayer, for those of you that would like a special prayer. Wishing everyone here a week filled with joy, love, true connection, and just a reminder that if you want to learn more about the art of soul making, there is a flyer on the back table that you can find out more about it. It starts November 7th, I think it is, isn't it? It's a Thursday. Anyway, so please stand and sing our closing song.
My heart is open wide, yes, I